was just reviewing a client's numbers last week, and I found what's typical of most clinicians in their first year or two of practice ownership. She was pricing her treatments so that they were coming out between 30 and 45% gross profit margin when they really need to be at 60. Even getting a handful of these treatments up to 50% gross profit margin is going to be an easy win, because a 10% improvement on gross profit margin on a client doing $250,000 in sales is going to be $25,000 that goes back into that practice this year. Now, that's not a huge business, but it's a totally realistic practice, and it's probably a lot like yours. I'm Chelsea Zania. I am a CPA who works with medspa, HRT, and other wellness practice owners, and today I'm sharing with you the exact 3-step system that I use to find that kind of money in a practice so that you can find what's already sitting in your numbers. By the end of this episode, you're going to know exactly how to apply it in your practice starting this week. I call this system my EPT system, and the E stands for evaluate, which is the first step. Now, if you have financial statements, that's awesome. We will use them. But if you don't let that hold you back. This is what most practice owners get wrong, is they wait around and they worry about the bookkeeping. And really, we can jump right in and get started with profitability by treatment. And this is honestly one of my clients' favorite and one of the most effective exercises that we do. This exercise accomplishes 2 things. So the first is that we're actually comparing your profitability by treatment to industry benchmarks to make sure that you're not just making money, but you're actually maximizing your profitability. The second thing that we're doing is we're comparing your gross profit margin per hour across treatments to make sure that we are spending your time and your marketing dollars towards those treatments that are actually bringing you in the most profit. Again, the goal here is that we're maximizing your profitability, and this is telling you exactly where your time and your marketing dollars should go. Okay, so that client that I mentioned previously, we're gonna call her client R. We just did this process last week, and her treatments were sitting anywhere between 30 to 45%, which means that we had plenty of room to improve her profitability. So she had some really easy wins here, but the one that stood out the most was her membership program. And I see this all the time because we want to give our repeat clients and those clients that are loyal a discount. And that is really important that we do that, but we want our membership program to be a win for both the client and for us and our practice. So we need to make sure that those membership programs are priced accordingly so that we make the amount of money we want to make, and then our regular pricing, if they choose not to be a member, is just gravy on top. So that's a sample of the evaluate step. Now you know which treatments are really worth your time and which ones are underpriced. And profitability by treatment is just one element of the evaluate step. We also like to look at other financial benchmarks as well as calculate your real revenue capacity based on both your providers and your location, and that way we know what your practice is actually capable of. The evaluate step serves as a diagnosis. It tells you what's going on, but it doesn't tell you what to do next. What R really wanted to do was hire an employee and pay off some debt, and just knowing her margins didn't give her enough information to do that. That's where the next piece comes in. Once you know where you stand, you need to know how any decision is going to play out before you make it. The second step in the EPT system is plan. That's what the P stands for. And the tool that does the heaviest lifting here is what I call the weekly CEO cash planner. And it's a 13-week cash flow forecast. And it is the most effective tool that I give clients for actually improving their cash flow. So here's how it works. You enter what you know is coming in over the next 13 weeks and what you know is going to be going out of your bank account over the next 13 weeks. And this gives you visibility that you've never had before. So it allows you to put the numbers in for a decision and see how that decision is going to affect your cash flow before you make it, rather than waiting until after and then looking at everything. So my client R was really wanting to pay down debt, like I mentioned before. So she was very aggressively making large payments every single week to pay that down. But the problem was when her pharmaceutical invoices would come due 30 days later, then she wouldn't have the cash on hand to pay them. So then she would turn around and put them back on the credit card. And this is what I call yo-yo debting. And it's just as damaging as yo-yo dieting. So she would get herself out of debt and then she would put herself back into debt. And you really just lose momentum here and you end up on this hamster wheel of always being in debt. So once we built that 13-week forecast, R was able to see what was actually happening. She then had that visibility. So what we realized is that, okay, if she stops paying aggressively down on this credit card for a few weeks, she can build up enough cash flow to pay off her invoices and then also get ahead a little bit and then go back to paying down the credit card. And it gets her off this hamster wheel and ahead of it. This visibility is what lets her prioritize her cash flow in a way that gets her out of debt for good. Now, this 13-week cash flow forecast gets you immediate visibility and will naturally start improving profitability and cash flow, but we like to build a 12-month bird's eye view forecast alongside of it because we want to see what's going to happen over the next 12 months when we put numbers to all of your plans, and that will help you make decisions as to when these types of things are going to happen and help you scale and put a plan together to grow profitably. So now you've got a diagnosis and you've got a plan. You know exactly where your practice stands and how your decisions are going to affect your cash flow. But if you want to see real improvement, you need to track a few key metrics every week. So this last piece is where we're going to build real momentum and drive towards your goals. The third step in the EPT system is track. And this is where most clinicians get it wrong before they ever start because they think they need a huge dashboard with 20 metrics, but that's not real visibility. It's just noise. It's truly overwhelming and it doesn't actually move you toward anything. What we do instead is build a customized scorecard with just a few key metrics that are really driving you towards your specific goal. We do the same thing for your employees if you have them to make sure that everybody's on the same page and working towards the same goals. I had a client, and we'll call her Elle, and her goals were around revenue generation. She really needed to improve her revenues, so we set a target and we gave her a few key metrics to track on her scorecard, and her performance improved dramatically because not only did she have that target, but she had control over those few key drivers that really pushed her momentum every single week. That's the part most clinicians miss. You can't hit a target you never set for yourself. Once you have that target and you have a few key metrics that you're watching that really drive you towards hitting it, momentum is going to naturally build on its own. So that's track. It's not more data, it's the right data that we stay on top of every single week. And that way we're not going off course and finding out 3 months later. Let me be real with you for a second here. If you're watching this and you're thinking, yes, this makes total sense, but I want to circle back once things settle down, or I need to wait until my practice is a little farther along, I want to challenge that. Because here's the thing that I've noticed after years of doing this. A lot of practice owners wait when they've talked to me a year prior or they've been following along for months before they ever book a call. And I get it because you're really responsible and you want to make a good decision and not just a fast one. But here's the thing about waiting. I want you to think about it like a leaky roof. If you catch it early, it's a small hole. It's maybe a patch, maybe an afternoon's worth of work. But if you don't get to it because you're busy or you think it's not urgent yet, this same leak turns into major water damage, mold, a much more expensive repair down the line. Your profitability works the same way. Every month that you wait to work on your margins, to put together a plan and a scorecard, this isn't another month that just stays neutral. This is another month where the gap widens between where you are and where you want to be as you scale your practice and grow. This isn't about doing this today because a spot is closing or prices are increasing. This is about being honest with yourself and understanding that waiting doesn't pause the problem, it just makes it grow bigger. So if this is resonating, here's what I want to invite you into. I have a program called the Peak Profit Accelerator, and it's where we actually implement this 3-step EPT system together over 3 months. This is a one-on-one program. You and I are actually working together through your specific numbers, your specific treatments, and creating your specific cash plan. During those 3 months, it's about 60 to 90 minutes of a time commitment per week because we're actually building and implementing the system. But here's what I really want you to hear. It's a 3-month time commitment for a lifetime return. Once a system is built, it's not something that's going to take you 60 to 90 minutes to maintain. We're not trying to build some overly complicated system. We're building something simple that you can keep up with and maintain in 30 minutes or less per week, long after we're done working together. If you're sitting here thinking, I don't know if I'm ready for the full program, or I don't even know if this is right for me, this is exactly what a clarity call is for. We'll get on a call and look at where your practice actually stands and help you figure out if the accelerator is the next right best step for you, or if it's something else. There's no pressure either way. I just want you to leave the call with more clarity than you had coming in. Because at the end of the day, you didn't start a practice to stay confused about your numbers. You got into this to build something that actually pays you back. So let's figure out what that looks like for you.